Hey guys, welcome to the Ramsey-Paul show. It's been a while, and I'm like, how do I live stream? I almost forgot. It's been a while since I've live streamed. I've been doing my daily news videos every day, and there's a question from Wolf. Is this going to be a rehash of his YouTube videos released earlier today? No, and that's part of the thing I wanted to do with my live stream. I don't want to just rehash what I talked about on my daily videos. And so what I used to do is I'd have a my live stream on Monday, Tuesday, and then with Z-Man on Wednesday night, we would talk about a topic, and then maybe Thursday a live stream. But the problem, I mean, that was fine, and it actually was good to get super chats. But I decided I wanted to go more back to my video format, even though I don't get as many super chats or anything. I still enjoy that format. So I'm trying to figure out, I want this show to be a little bit different. I want to kind of deep dive into various topics. And I thank you guys for being here. I used to start this at 8 p.m. I'm obviously starting it now at 7 p.m. Central. And thank you, for being here, understanding that. I think it works a little bit better early. And we will try to do a goal. If I could get $50 tonight, I will do a show with Sasha on Sunday. We talked about that. So usually the gold stuff works. So it's going to be here. I haven't talked to you guys live in a while. And if you want to support me, again, I don't really make much on the YouTube part of it, but that's my passion. So, but if you want to support me, I really do appreciate doing a super chat, or Rumble has a rant. And there's Power Chat here too. Power Chat sent in a question that works out well. So thank you for all for that. And did I I accidentally closed my notes here. So let me bring up my notes here back. I get these tabs open and I sometimes accidentally close things. So, all right, let's see here. Yeah, what I wanted to talk about tonight is just more, I guess, philosophical a little bit, what's happening, understanding this. So during the week, we get a lot of news and get a lot of news stories. But is there anything that really ties it together, or are they just random stories? Well, there's some stories that I think are pretty random, and they're not in the overarching theme. But I think what we're seeing is in many ways by design. Now, the specific events can be unknown, but there's entities pushing things in a certain way. And let me show you one of those things is what I mean. And I saw this. This is many young men today have little to bring to the marriage bargain, especially as young women's educational level on average now exceeds their male suitors. And so this is a new study suggests that one reason U.S. marriage rates are at a 50-year low is because of a shortage of economically attractive men. And usually the mainstream is going to blame men on this. Like, this is their fault. They're just playing video games and goofing off. But I think this is more by design. I think there's been a lot of forces that have been trying to subvert us, to destroy us. I mean, there's a couple of ways that you can destroy a people. One way is just by war, revolution. And that's been difficult to do with the United States. Some people tried that. You remember the Weather Underground? they were trying violent revolution, but that got squashed and it gained no traction. So that was kind of the revolutionary Marxism, or attack directly on our nation. So a lot of them, they took a different tack. They did what we call cultural Marxism, which is not so much focusing on economic matters like free healthcare, although you could put that into Marxism and stuff like that, but is how can you break the culture to destroy the people? And the people that hate us, they really analyze that. They said, well, what makes these people, white Americans or Europeans, so strong? And that they identified certain things that help keep us strong. And for example, the family, the family being a man and a woman and children, not a couple of gay guys, but that's the family. The family was the building block of civilization. And within the family, you had different defined roles that were supported by the society. It doesn't mean every family had to abide by these roles, but the society supported the notion that in a hierarchical fashion, the husband was the head of the household. And you see remnants of this, like you ever wonder why still traditionally a woman takes a man's name, not the other way around, is because a woman is with her father, then her father, like at the wedding ceremony, traditionally gives the girl over to the husband. It's a transfer of families. And at that point, she was under the authority of her father. Now, what was the daughter now becomes the wife under the authority of her husband. And that's a natural thing. That she will have children and have authority over the children. Now, just saying that will rub the modern audience in a bad way, because they will say, well, wait a minute. So that sounds abusive. Like if a man is in charge of a woman, that sounds oppressive. And that is how insidious a propaganda has, is normal hierarchy is seen as evil. And because in a Christian society, men had a responsibility to love their wives, not abuse them, the same with their family. And most did. But there always are exceptions. We don't live in a perfect world. We live in a fallen world. And some men did abuse their wives, and that's horrible. They should be punished. But what happened, our enemy kind of set it up as, well, that's the norm. So if like a man's in charge of the household, that means there's some sort of abuse going on. So what we've seen, even this goes way back, even when I was little, is a majority of households now, I would say women really run them. In many cases, it's been totally inverted, where you have children that are really in charge, raining terror upon the parents. So they're on top, and then the wife, and then at the bottom, the husband. You see all sorts of jokes about this in Hollywood. The man has to hide in his man cave, and the woman decides everything and wears the pants, and the man's always in fear of his wife. Sometimes rightfully so, because of divorce and ruin him. And that is to seem as comical or as a good thing. And I'm suggesting that wasn't just by accident we went that way. That was a deliberate strategy that was done. And when I say deliberate strategy, I'm not saying that all these people met in a secret volcano to plot this, although they did get together. But how it kind of works in that realm, you have the so-called intellectuals, and a lot of them came out of Columbia University really starting in the 1930s. And then they gained more power and networking, and they got a lot of power in the media and a lot of the cultural institutions. Because if you want to attack the culture, right, if you're a culture Marxist, then you don't want to infiltrate, let's say, the garbage industry, or get into the electrical grid or something like that, or housing. You want to get in charge of the cultural representations. And it's been ubiquitous. We see this everywhere. And now we call it woke, but this whole woke thing isn't really new. It goes way back. It goes back at least to the 1930s, and it's just been as like a cancer spreading. And now it's like so obvious. Even when I was a kid in the 70s, if you look at the TV shows, they were subversive compared to even not as subversive or was in your face as it is now, but you still saw it back then. They definitely glamorized divorce and broken families, because the most important thing is for the parents to be happy. That's what the children want. And they mocked religion, especially Christianity. And whereas usually, in the 50s and beforehand, the man, fathers knows best, or Andy Griffith and all that. The father was a good character. But now in modern portrayals, the father is always stupid or abusive or something wrong with them. It's the woman that has to really set everything straight. And especially it's a racial component, they tend to more so push that on white fathers. Not as much with other races, although to a degree. But even like the Cosby Show, Bill Cosby wasn't shown as a negative character there. I didn't watch it much, and they try to put up the other characters too. But this was a design, and so what we're seeing here, and I have a heart for especially young men. They're having a very difficult time now in America because the social contract has been broken with them. And we live in a country now where this is a very divided country. We kind of have the old America still, and I'm not saying this by age because you could be a young person but still identify with the old America of Thomas Jefferson, all that, George Washington, Andrew Jackson, McKinley, the old America, the cowboys, the pioneers. And then you have the new America that is very Marxist in nature, very globalist, very cosmopolitan. And there's a real divide here. So the new people or the new Americans, they see our history, they hate our history. They say our history was evil, that we came here and we exterminated the Indians, which we didn't, and we're evil conquerors, and this whole nation was built by slaves, which is a lie. But they say all of this stuff to try to say our history was evil, we are evil, and if we want to be good, meaning white people, the only way we can be a good white is to work to be an ally to eliminate whiteness, which fundamentally means eliminating white people. And so that's how they try to appeal to people, especially women. It's more effective. And I think I'll show another graph here soon too, but I don't even have to show it. You guys know. You should. If you don't, I'll show it to you. But young men and young women, there's extreme difference politically. Young women are getting more left wing, and young men are more right wing. And people are wondering the reasons for that. But part of it is women are more conformist and they will go along with whatever the society tells them to believe in. And all the major institutions now are controlled by the left. And they've been teaching these people since they're kids that their ancestors were evil and that all minorities are victims. And it's just not been taught in the school. So when I say teaching, I'm not just saying like a second grade teacher teaches this. Oh, they do. The schools have the propaganda in it big time. But it's more than that. It's in our whole culture. And what is cultures? Well, what do most people consume? Some people read books, but not as many people read books anymore. So that isn't as so much. I would say most people get their culture from, at least in the 70s and 80s, it was TV and movies, somewhat radio, and now we got the internet. And that's why groups, by the way, such as ADL and SPLC have been so active trying to censor the internet, because they really had control over the movies and television, so they could be on point with their propaganda to have a very destructive cultural message against our people. And again, it's insidious because they could have a show that's entertaining, and a little bit of this you can kind of overlook, but it has the corrosive effect over time. So maybe just watching it once is no big deal. You can just laugh about it, but it's over and over and over. And their idea it's a demoralization. So whenever you see a villain, it's a white person. Sasha today yesterday went to see the new Jurassic Park movie. And she said, the dinosaurs were entertaining and everything. But Sasha even said that it had all the tropes, right? Like the smart black scientist. And this is a trope they try to do, which is an inversion of real life. If you look at sub-Saharan Africa, the IQs are very low. There was no written language. There was no will, very primitive people. but they had to recreate history. No, we had this advanced culture called Wakanda, and white people stole it somehow. Somehow we forgot it. And they try to push that. So the whole like black scientist is just so brilliant. And then women, instead of having their natural roles as a mother and as a companion and as a helpmate to her husband, no, the woman is the main character now, the girl boss. And I guess this new Jurassic Park had that, the girl boss, and then the heroic black scientist and the mixed race or whatever brown hero family. And then the villains or the cowardly people, without exception, are white men. And we've seen this over and over and over and over and over and over. And it's not by accident. You could say it's just by accident. If it was, here or there, you'd have a program that did it. But when it's consistently doing this is by design. And the design is to try to break apart, again, as I said, one of the central units is the family. So how can we break apart families, especially white families? Africans or blacks, they've never had the family structure as white people have. I think it's not native to them. If you look in Africa, they don't really have the monogamous man, wife, and they stick around and have children. The model is more, you have the top guys impregnate the woman, and then they run off. They don't even know who their kids are, and the women raise the kids. That's the model. And when we brought the black slaves over, the white people, especially white Christians, attempted to impose the Christian morality on the black population. Say, no, you can't do that. You got to just be with one woman. And if you're a guy, you got to provide for your kids and stay married and all that type of stuff. And, it worked a little. I mean, it was better than Africa, and because you can put pressures on it. And even in a lot of people were saying, how come like the black community used to be a lot better in the 50s and 60s? They had more of a family structure and so on. And that's true. But I would argue that wasn't really natural. That was imposed heavily by the white society upon them to act in that way, what they would say acting white. When that has been removed, you see the current state where it's reverted back to the African model, where men, they have all their offspring by different women, and women, there's not the attachment like we have in white or Asian communities in general. It is pretty rare. And especially interracial, like if you have a white woman and a black man, it's something like 97% of the time, the black man is not in the life of the woman or the kids or anything like that. It's crazy statistics. So that was already broken. But the idea was, how can we do this to the white family? And so it was, one of the ways you can do this, and that's what I brought when it comes to economics, is if you can shut out young white men from having success financially, it makes it harder for them to attract a mate and start a family, because men and women are fundamentally different when it comes to biology and our sexual criteria. And you can oversimplify it, but in general, men are attracted to youth and beauty, and there's fertility reasons for that. And women are attracted to men that have status or they can provide. And back in the day, when mostly women, not all women work, but almost all men work, and the model was, again, the man would get the job, and the woman, she may work part-time, but it was expected for the man to be the breadwinner, and the woman, the wife, would take care of the children. And if you, as a man, were a breadwinner, even back then, you didn't have a really good chance of getting a wife. And I don't blame the women. They want someone that will provide that. So what has happened is there's been I think, a deliberate ploy or strategy is, how can we prevent white boys and men from getting these positions? And the problem is, if you just have merit-based, whites are going to excel. You're going to have a lot of white men that are very good, that do, in NASA or in engineering or computer science and so forth, or being a doctor. But that So that's the problem. So there was a deliberate thing to exclude white men, and we call it DEI now, but before DEI, they called it affirmative action. And it was first of all packaged as, oh no, we just want to get the best qualified people. Historically, we've excluded minorities and women, so we want to correct that. And I think most people, even white people, said, oh, okay. A lot of that was bullshit, but oh, okay, that seems reasonable. So let's just make it fair. There's no reason we can't have black doctors or female doctors. But then what happened, it really changed to, then they said, well, the problem is, though, when you have the same opportunity, you didn't have many women in STEM or as doctors or as engineers or blacks. And there's differences, there's reasons why. But according to the left's point of view, everyone is exactly the same, or at least all racial groups are, and sex. So men and women are exactly the same. So if there's not enough in proportion men, women, or minorities, it must be that the system is broken, is racist, is sexist, or whatever. So we got to fix it by giving a leg up to women and blacks, give them an advantage. But it was supposed to be just temporary. That was the whole idea of affirmative action. In fact, Sandra Day O'Connor, who's on the Supreme Court, she wrote, this is affirmative action is okay, but it's just a temporary thing, because the idea is once the blacks with the legacy of slavery, once they got a hand up, then they'd be on our level and that would be it. But it was based on a false assumption that all races are the same. That's not the case. And there's a false assumption that men and women are the same. That's not the case. Men and women typically have different interests. They have different abilities. Same with the races. So when that didn't happen, they then started to have to do pretty much hard quotas, and it culminated into what we know now as DEI. Whereas if you're a business, and for example, if you want a government contract, you have to have so much of your employees be black or women or whatever. And that was really by law, puss. So you wouldn't be able to function as a business. And so this had an effect then of, and we're seeing it now, of excluding a lot of white men from like getting into med school. It's very difficult. I know a doctor, I won't say where she lives, but she said, it was crazy because her mother would have said to her, you should find another good doctor, to marry. She said, Mom, there's no white doctors in my medical school class. They don't want to take them. They don't. I mean, it's just, all foreigners or women. And that's the way we see now. Or when I go to the vet school is almost 100% women now. And that's not that the men are being lazy or don't want to work. It's they're being excluded. And this is intentional. And I know there's been some pushback in DEI, and that's good. But this is very important, because if men can't provide, then they're not going to attract a wife, because a wife wants a man that's going to be as high status and provide. So if she wants to have children, she has that option. Now, women work, and I don't think women want to stop working necessarily. But I think if you ask like the average woman, I think she would like a situation where she could work, but she doesn't really have to work. It's kind of up to her. And if she wants to maybe have children, maybe she could stay home for a few years and raise the children, and then maybe go back to work part-time or whatever, and still be financially able to do that. I think that's what most women want. And so they're not going to want to marry a guy that's working at Taco Bell, right? It's just not going to work. And this is where the sex things are a little bit different, because men don't care about that as much. If the girl at Taco Bell is hot and young, they will still be attracted to her. Although even then, people tend to marry of the same class, or people they're around. But this is really devastating to men. And I've had people send me DMs and just, it's very difficult to get jobs now, especially if you're a white man, because you're excluded because of DEI. Or now, and Trump has brought this up finally with H-1Bs. They've been trying to outsource jobs to Indians because they're lower wages. And that culture is so fraudulent. So fraudulent. They lie about everything this in the culture. I'm sure there's great Indians, but the culture is just dishonest. So you have all these people with credentials and they can't do the job. And they're very ethnocentric. So if one gets in, they get in. There are others like them. And this is another thing that has been attacked against us is words like racism, right? Or xenophobia, whatever. And racism, it was one of those things that a word that was empowered against us. It was very clever. It was to mean just for white people. But at first it wasn't, again, it's never packaged that way. Satan never packages something harmful as being harmful. Satan, it's like in Genesis. Oh, no, no. God said you can't eat of the fruit of the tree, but look at it. It's good. It'll make you wise. That's what Satan told the woman, the serpent. So Satan's always going to present something as good, even though it's poison. And this is how these people do this. A lot of them, I think, are children of the devil, and they do it the same way. They're no, 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 no. We just think it's bad to hate people because of the race, because people, you can't help how you're born, right? So why would you just irrationally hate someone because of their skin color? And most white people to this day, myself, I agree with that. I think that'd be kind of dumb. I never understood that because I never even think this was an issue of like you have really great people, but you just hate them because of their skin color. That almost I don't think doesn't happen. What happens is a skin color is a proxy for race, and races have different behaviors, and some of those behaviors tend to be negative. That is what it is. It's not the color of the skin, though. They're dumbing that down. But I think most white people even thought, well, yeah, it's wrong just to hate people because of the race. You should treat everyone as a individual. And I think, good people in general, despite all the propaganda against white people. I think we're some of the best people, really, in morality and trying to be fair to others. And we thought, that makes sense. Who wants to hate someone because of their race? That's dumb. And yeah, racism is bad. But then, see, like the devil, they twisted it into a new thing of like, well, no, just white people can be racist. So this is why it's confused a lot of white people when they come out with something. For example, there's so many of these things. So let's say if you're at a school and they have a Black Club, okay, the Black Students Organization, where they help Black kids and they help to give Black kids Black scholarships, right? And a white person will think, well, okay, but shouldn't white people be able to do that too? Maybe white club and white scholarships? And they'll say, no, that'd be racist. That's evil. And if you say, well, why is it okay for blacks or Jews or other groups? Oh, well, because they're oppressed, but you're not oppressed. But then the kids are thinking, well, what do you mean I'm not oppressed? I have to get higher scores to get into anything. I am actively pushed down because I'm a white male. So what are you talking about here? And this is where I think a lot of the, especially young men, they have this resentment. And that's why I think so much of the young men now are right wing and much more radical. And women less so, because again, they still benefit from DEI a little bit, bringing women into these positions. And so while the people that hate us have attacked white women too, they've understood that white men are the key, because if you eliminate white men, you're not going to have white children, right? White women cannot create white children on their own. They need a white man. So if you eliminate white men, you're not going to have white children. That's how you eliminate whiteness. And I think that's their goal. And I don't think that. They've stated that, although they get mad when you bring them back their own words to them. But that is what they've been doing. So I think this is all these stories I covered during the week. If you think about it, not all, but a lot of them have this thing. For example, immigration is always a big one, right? Well, how did that happen? How did that happen all of a sudden that Minnesota in the 1970s It had a reputation of being a very cold state, kind of a Nordic state, because a lot of people from, I think, Norway, Sweden, in that area, they migrated to Minnesota. They had a big population there, and they were kind of goofy, but yeah, that was their view, and they were kind of Democrats, left wing in a lot of ways. Of economically, the Walter Mondale, I think it was from there, and others like that. But that was okay. You understood that. But how did a state that was almost 100% white, like Minneapolis, now we have these Somalis in there? I mean, how did that happen exactly? Did the people in Minnesota get together and say, we hate living with our own people? What we want to do is get these people from East Africa, in a very violent, poor country, very, Black Hawk Down, a lot of cruelty, warlords, Muslim religion, extreme violence, lower IQs. Let's bring all these people into our communities. Was that ever? Was that ever a bill or a proposition that was put to the people of Minnesota? Like, hey, here's what we want to do. Yeah. It just happened. There's the various organizations that did this behind the scenes. No one voted on it. But why did these organizations do this? Why not? Because you would think the thing to do is, okay, if you have a heart, let's say for Africa, Somalia, then maybe the liberal do-gooders can go over there and fix it there, help them fix it. It's a fool's errand. It's not going to work, and they've tried it. But the idea to bring them over here, well, this is our home. You're destroying our home. But see, this was deliberate, and they moved them into very extremely wide areas on purpose. And there's this a new story now. What they did in Minnesota, they're trying to do to Salt Lake City, because Utah was always a Mormon area. And again, the cliche, a bunch of white blonde people and Mormons, whatever their issues, they tend to be very attractive people. And the people that hate us, like, no, we can't have that. Here's a bunch of white people, Mormons, that have a lot of kids. We can't have that, because having a lot of white kids, that's dangerous to us. We want to eliminate that. So where do we import these people that are going to be hostile to them? And so they're trying to do it to Salt Lake City. They also imported the Somalis to Maine, which is an extremely wide area. And then you have the whole disruptions, the violence, the crime, the whole bit. And then they're able to, any pushback, right? If any of the people that live in Minnesota or Utah or Maine says, I don't want him here, this is our homeland, then they can say, well, you're racist. You're racist. How dare you? Don't you know you're an immigrant and we're all the same? We all bleed red. How can you be such a racist? If a racist, you want your employer to know that, you'll lose your job. That's how they did it. So they did it by intimidation with the term racist, getting back to how they weaponize that term racist to mean just for white people. That's all it means. And we see this all throughout. And so again, the whole immigration stories, it all comes from the desire to break apart white countries. And it's just not the United States, because you could understand if it's just one country, maybe something else is going on, but it's Ireland, it's Germany, it's Britain, it's Australia, it's New Zealand. Any white country, they want to destroy the white majority. That's why they got so mad at Hungary and Orban, because they protected their borders. And that's why Orban's called a fascist and evil, because he protects his borders. And so there's that real desire across the globe to do this, and it's happening across the globe. So this isn't by accident. And sometimes they try to fool dumb people like it's just an act of God. Oh, climate change is causing this. What a bunch of nonsense. No, what's causing it is your evil groups are rounding up people, sending them to our homelands, and then they get on the welfare dole. And if we criticize it, we go to jail. And if they commit crimes, we just got to put up with their crimes, because again, if we object, then we get called the evil racist, and everyone's scared to be called racist, right? Although that's changing. That has to change. And that is how they paralyzed our people. It's just like if you ever drove in the country, a lot of deer around here. Some of the deer, they get real stupid And when you come up on them, they freeze in the headlights. And that's how our people have become with the word. You just say the racist word, it causes white people to freeze and apologize and beg forgiveness. And we got to break that conditioning. And I think that is happening. But again, women are still more susceptible to that than men. And so that's what's happening. So the immigration thing, that is a little bit there. Epstein, right? Well, how look at Epstein's background. Who is he connected to? Is he connected to people like Germans or Irish Catholics? No, right? He's connected to people that have expressed a hatred to our culture, our people. And I don't know. I think it was mostly the girls that were trafficked were white girls, right? And so there's something there. And the potential blackmail, we don't know the scope of it, but it was to control our people. And so foreign affairs, why, how we have to fight and encourage wars to destroy our people, a lot of brothers' wars. And that's all tied into this. So a lot of this isn't a one-off type of thing. And the whole sexual degeneracy, when people have a sexual degeneracy, no matter what it is in the spectrum, I won't go through it all. You guys all know the different types of weirdness. They add new weirdness all the time. But one of the goals why they want to celebrate that is because those people, they don't produce children, right? And that's the goal. So then you get the birth rates down, and that's the goal. And they've been very effective at that. So then having women, again, it's in their fertile years, instead of marrying a man and having children, they get their email job at some office, and they get preferential treatment and getting hired. And then they want to travel, screw around in a sterile fashion without having children. And to our enemy, that's a good thing. So all these things, I don't think are by an accident. They're all tied together by a unified theme. And they want to make it against the law. And they have in some countries to even discuss these matters, which is how you know they're true. And so they have various legislation. Oh, you can't discuss this matters, what's really happening. So you can talk about like individual things on their own, and that would be allowed, but you can't get into anything in specifics. So that is it. And let me just see here. I think I got a rant. So thank you. It's great to have a rant. Rowhouse, $5. When they say immigrants do not take American jobs, how about this? All right, let's take a look at this. Yeah, and again, this is the whole H-1B thing right here. America's workforce is being erased in real time. New federal data shows H-1B, OPT, and H-4 visas now capture 82% of the U.S. tech jobs, while American citizens face layoffs, wage collapse, and foreclosure. And yeah, this is a huge issue. This is one of the ways that is designed to, again, exclude Americans, especially white Americans, from these otherwise high-paying jobs. And you notice, I don't think they would be so keen on pushing H-1B visas if, let's say, most of the H-1B visas went to white Germans or white Norwegians, then they would probably be against it. But because it's not, it's going to Indians, they are definitely supportive of that. So, yeah, that is another example of technically that the corporations, by the way, that do this are breaking the law, because again, everything's sold as a lie. The lie was with these H-1B visas is, wow, the tech industry, and we have a shortage of programmers exploding. And until we can retrain our kids in school and encourage them to go into STEM, we just don't have enough people to run the economy. There's just not enough. We can't get people. We're desperately looking for qualified people. We can't find any because the colleges aren't producing enough STEM majors. So until we fix that situation, we need these foreigners. Oh, look at Indians. They have all these qualifications. Never mind, most of them are fake and fraudulent, but hey, they have all the qualifications and it's just temporary, right? So, what a H-1B visa is, guys, is we're never going to take an American job. No, no, no. It's just in the case we're trying to fill a position, we look everywhere, we can't find an American, then we use an H-1B, which is just temporary. And then when we get a qualified American, we'll put an American in that spot. Well, why should you be against that sort of thing? See, it sounds very reasonable, right? It sounds reasonable to me saying that, but that's not how it's used. They just lie. They just lay off. They don't hire the Americans and they hire the Indians. And there's a couple of reasons. It's cheaper, but that's just at the lower level why they do it. At the higher level, again, is to make sure that Americans don't get these jobs, so it breaks family formation and breaks a family. That is the ultimate goal. So this is why they do that. And then the Indians, the H-1B, a lot of them, like 60% get a green card and they bring all their family. And then you see this. I mean, it's just not in tech. Like, you ever wonder why all these hotel chains, franchises are run by Indians? I'm like, don't white people want to, like white families want to buy a hotel chain? That'd be a nice business, you would think. What, are white people just lazy? And that's what we're told. Oh, just white people are lazy. They don't want to do the hard work to own a hotel chain. I'm like, really? No, that's not the case. The case is the government, your government, from your tax dollars, your ancestors, our people built this country, but our wealth is going to pay like Indians. So if you're Indian, you get an advantage. You get loans that aren't available to white people for hotels. I'm not joking. This is how it's done in convenience stores and everything. It's outrageous. I mean, that should all be stripped from those people. It needs to be given back. But that's what happened. So there's been a plan set in motion to hurt our people. And sadly, most are politicians, and this can tie back to Epstein, one-way potential blackmail, or, hey, we'll call you mean names if you don't support our program, but if you play along, we'll fund you. So you got people like in Arkansas, Tom Cotton, doesn't give a shit about Arkansas. How does that happen? How does that happen? Well, there's a way it happens, and this is what it's doing. So, yeah, that was a good thing. And Rojas, another one. Who decided importing Somalis into Minnesota was a good idea? This is the new mayoral candidate for Democrats is the consequence of that thinking. Let's see here. Yeah, this is the new mayor here of Minneapolis. And he's Somali, right? And he's saying here that the real threat, I don't know how I set my alarm accidentally. The real threat to America is white people. So they come to this country and they have a lot of hatred to the people that built this country because their people can't build it. Look at their country. And they still refer to their homeland as Somalia. So who thought of it? There was people, this was by design. It wasn't done by accident. It's not an act of God. It was intentional. And this is what we see here. So it was a bad thing, but that is definitely what has happened. And the other things that have, I think, really hurt our people, and again, this is, I think, in a lot of ways by design, is pornography and working to split men and women apart. And so if you can get, especially white guys, just consuming porn and living in fantasies and worried about women, oh, if I approach a woman, I could get Me Too'd. And again, what was the whole hysteria about Me Too? And again, it was to try to, not that there's some legitimate creepy guys out there, I'm not defending them, but it was to try to put the fear in God in a lot of men not to approach women. No, just consume your porn, do that and have your fantasy, or simp for women. Instead of getting a real woman in your life, just have your imaginary women on OnlyFans or your favorite influencer you can pretend that you're in a relationship with. And we're seeing that of a lot of problems where it breaks down, where a lot of Gen X, there's a lot of statistics you would think on the surface are good. Like Gen X, they don't drink as much. They don't have many kids out of wedlock. So you think, wow, or not Gen X, Gen Z, I'm sorry. So Gen Z, they don't drink as much as the older generations. They don't have kids out of wedlock. They don't have as much sex. But that's because they're just retreating. It's not necessarily because of a positive development. They're also not marrying. They're not having relationships. They are just going into their fantasy realms. And social media has added to that. And women, they can get validation by posting stuff and their narcissism. That's typical with a lot of women, and put their pictures and they get a lot of validation. So they don't really have a real relationship. And man, they get into their games or pornography. So again, that brings into a lot of issues there too. So all of these things kind of conspire to make it, to destroy our future. And I guess the question is, well, what do we do? Is it just, do we complain about things, or is there something that we can do to make it better? And one thing is, just when people talk and there is awareness, it emboldens people. And the Overton window has switched a lot in my lifetime, not in my lifetime, hell, in the last 10 years, what people are talking about. And I think that's really important. And people are less afraid of being called racist or whatever, because if you have nothing to lose, what the heck? And that's what the situation a lot of these people are in now. So you might as well be bold. And so I think we see a lot more boldness now, that we too can advocate for our people. And we don't have to have a big explanation for it. We're not the world's flop house, and we don't have to give an explanation why we want a homeland just for us. I saw this debate where that one of those things where the guy's in the middle and he has all these people. He was some British guy, but he wasn't even British. I don't know what his real nationality was. Not white, but he seemed to think that they have a God-given right to be in our countries. I'm like, no. And they always frame it that we have to justify why we don't want them in. And I'm like, we don't have to justify that. That's the thing. You don't have a right to be here. Now, you have a right to your homelands. We have a right to ours. And we don't have to give you some convoluted reason or explain it to you or get your approval or your permission. And that's one of the things hopefully our people, we can get beyond, is quit trying to get the people hate us their permission or their agreement. I don't really care about that anymore. We're not going to get that anyway. And you're not going to argue with them about it, because on some ways, I think, understand that if they have to just live with their people, it's going to be a lot shittier than living in a white country. They know that. But that also creates a lot of envy and hatred, right? Because you're with people, you're in a society that your people didn't build, or your people can't build or can't even maintain. And that angers you, so you have a lot of hatred. And that's not healthy, because envy is a very dangerous emotion. So that's their view. But we got to say, no, we don't have to give a justification. We don't have to. I saw this guy, he was arguing about, are immigrants good for the economy or not? And you could do various studies. They were debating these studies. And my point is, that's not even the issue. I don't think that they are good for the economy. Number one, they take a lot more welfare than they put in. If you look at people in America who put more in taxes and take out, the only people that put more in taxes than they take out are the white demographic. That's it. So these people aren't necessarily adding to this country. But let's say they were. That's not even an issue for me. The issue is we have a right, just like the Jewish people want, right, in Israel, to be around people with their values, their religion, their language, their heritage. We want that too. And we don't have to explain it or justify it or anything like that. And that is the biggest problem that we have. And if you don't agree with them, they may say these mean names. They call you a fascist, racist, whatever, supremacist. And we got to get to the point we don't really care about their mean names anymore. We care about a system that will be good for our people. And that's what I said. I don't really care what label you put on certain things, whether you call it fascist, communist, capitalist, whatever. I don't really care. I want a system that's good for our people. Well, and whatever gets these people out, that's the system I'm for. I don't care what name you put on it. It's irrelevant to me. Joe Biden's son on display here. Yeah, I did a video earlier about this. I'm not going to play this video just because he says the F word a lot. And I'm trying not to use the F word as much anymore, trying to clean it up a little bit. But Hunter Biden is a very vulgar man. So pretty much throughout this video, he's saying the F word. And he's an example of someone that's lived with a lot of privilege, right? Was raised rich. His dad was a powerful senator. He himself was an alcoholic and a drug addict. He never had to be held accountable because daddy took care of everything. Then he got into corruption with Ukraine, got that fake job that they paid him. And the only reason they paid him because he was the son of the vice president. Biden was the vice president at the time. And Ukraine's a corrupt nation. They wanted favors from the United States. So as part of the bribe, they hired this worthless guy. And I think he knows that. So he has a lot of anger and hatred to people. And we definitely see it. So Hunter Biden represents a lot of that. And that's the thing, too, when I'm just talking our people. There's different types or categories, I would say, of our people that aren't always on our side, and some of them never will be. Now, I kind of put I feel like talking about the New Testament as Jesus talking about when you plant the seed, there's various types of people, how they react. And that's the kind of the way in our situation. I'm always a big believer. We got to understand people have to make a journey from where they are. So don't make it more difficult for them when they're making that journey and they're starting to understand things. Don't go into a purity spiral because they may not be 100% there. An example was like JD Vance, right? He used to be a neocon and he's really changed his positions over the years. We should celebrate that. Michelle Malkin was that way. I knew her. I met her in real life, talked to her. We had dinner. She used to be a neocon, but she understood the error of her ways and she adapted. And I think that's good. So we don't want to be so like, oh, people, we're so better than they are. And you're just stupid normies. You don't understand things like we do. I think we got to have a heart for these people. They're our people, and they've been in a system since birth that has told them all this propaganda. It takes a while to get them. They've been brainwashed, so it takes a while to bring them out of that. And we got to have patience with some people. And I found out that's a little, as Abraham Lincoln said, a little bit of honey works better than a bunch of vinegar, right? And catching flies or encouraging people. So instead of being negative, I think we need to celebrate when people start to move over. We saw that with Charlie Kirk. Look how much he's moved. I celebrate that. Yeah, he used to be a different guy. Same with Matt Walsh and others. Tucker Carlson. Yeah, Tucker Carlson used to be a neocon. He admits it. He apologizes for it, but he's moved on. I think many reasons because of the type of stuff we do online. So good for Tucker. And so I think we need to celebrate that. So that's one camp. But these are people that aren't bad people. They just don't know any better. They're normies, and I don't mean that in a pejorative meaning. They're just normal people, and they've been taught these lies. They may have some questions, and we need to have a heart for them. Then we have other people, though. There's some people that they're in it for the money, and they understand they're willing to sacrifice the future of their people if it can make their life a little bit easier. So they'll go along with whatever is easiest for them. And these are the people they're happy to be. They could be a Nazi, they could be a communist, they could be a socialist, capitalist, whatever. Whatever makes their life easier, and they won't get into trouble, they will applaud. the grifter types. You have those, and sadly, you have some of those people. But then you have the real psychotic true believers that really have a self-hatred. They really believe it. And these people, there's just really no hope for. And it's a waste of time arguing with them. So Hunter Biden is kind of in that category. He's always had everything easy for him. And there could be a little bit of guilt because he's never had to work for anything. And so he has a lot of hatred. And if you have a lot of hatred, a safe class of people to attack are white people. And so that's what they do. And that's what Hunter Biden did there. So that is an aspect of that. So going forward, what we got to do, I've always been an advocate, we got to help people along. We got to help communities and don't be so too judgmental with people. I think we get too much into too many cul-de-sacs, or you gotta believe all, here's 100 things you gotta believe. I don't really believe in that. We're always going to have disagreements, right? I look at it this way. I want self-determination. That's not a radical concept. Woodrow Wilson, a Democrat, used to advocate for that. That's our position with Israel, that the Jewish people get self-determination. We can have that too. That needs to be our position. It doesn't mean that the other things aren't important and we can debate, but don't break fellowship over something like religion, for example. I know in our sphere, a lot of people are Catholic, and I get it, and there's some people are Orthodox and some people are Protestant. And I've always said, again, let's use a little more honey and less vinegar. But if you have like a real strident position, you have to be Catholic. Well, you're going to lose most of the American South then. I like it or not, most of the American South is Protestant. And they're good people. So I think you need to be a little bit, I'm not saying give up your religious beliefs, but understand that not everyone's going to buy into the same thing. I think we need someone pretty famous, I won't say who, you could probably guess, but he said it's very important that you don't have like hundreds of issues. You just focus on the few key issues. Otherwise, people get so. Our focus needs to be self-determination for our people, and then we can kind of sort out everything about how things should run, like how should marijuana be legal? Should all drugs be legal? Should you have prostitution, pornography? Or I have my opinions, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't debate these things. I think it's healthy. We should debate them now. But that shouldn't be like the whole corner. You don't need 100 points that you got to fit in. Otherwise, we're going to exclude you. And sadly, there's been a little bit of that too. And so I think we need to be respectful to others that have their beliefs. And it doesn't mean give up your beliefs, but for example, I'm not a pagan. I think worshiping Thor or something, I think it's really cringy. But if you want to believe in that, yeah, whatever. It doesn't mean that we can't work together to have self-determination, where we get rid of illegal aliens or even legal aliens in our country, where we start to establish strong border, where we start to provide job opportunities for our people, where we have a sense of a cohesion. I think we can all agree on certain things, right? Like the border, have a nation that doesn't hate our sons and daughters, where we can have safe communities. I think we can all agree on that type of thing. When it gets into religion or other aspects about, like drugs or sex or, should a woman be trad? What does it mean to be trad? All that. Again, that's not bad things, but that really shouldn't divide us. And too sadly, it has, because there's a lot of people that don't fit into necessarily, I'm a Catholic trad woman that poses in wheat fields with my 6 kids. That's what you need to do. Well, not all women are going to fit that mold, right? And not all men are going to fit the mold that, certain people view that we have to do. So that's my thing. And I think we need to be gracious to each other in those areas. So that would be my recommendation there. So let's see here. It's good to have you guys here tonight. And let's see here if I have anything else. Let's see if I got any power chats, and then look at my. I got some super chats. Got a super chat here. Let me bring that up here. Oh, KMax. Thank you, KMax. Rams, is there a growing side like you who seem to think they would favor J.D. Vance talking over the presidency over Donald Trump? Why is this growing? Yeah, I mean, this isn't new. I said this before the election. I preferred J.D. Vance over Trump. And Trump, I'm gonna use some references to my dear former co-host that passed away too soon, Z-Man. He always called Trump the Mule, and the Mule was a character in the Asimov novel, I think The Foundation, that was a destroyer of worlds because he shouldn't exist, but he did, and he was like chaos. And I always thought that was kind of a good analogy with Trump. I see Trump as someone, you had to have a personality like Trump to set the stage for what's coming, right? But I don't think Trump is the final destination. And Trump has a ton of issues I'm not super fond of. I'm not, but I got to give Trump credit. And Trump is one of those people, it's like an abusive relationship. They abuse you, you end up hating them, but you always come back to them because they always do things in the end. And Trump's that way. I get so mad at Trump. Then he comes out and says, goes to Europe lecturing them that they got to do something about their immigration or they won't be Europe anymore. And he just came out this week saying he's tired of all these H-1B visas and tech companies laying off Americans and hiring Indians. So that's good. Now, will he follow up on that? I don't know. But Trump, I'll give Trump, one of his strengths is he will adjust quickly. And if he sees something that's not working, he's very pragmatic. He's not much about ideology, so he's not going to stick with it. If it's not working, he'll change course, and that can be a strength. So, I think it had to be Trump. We needed a figure like Trump. I don't think J.D. Vance has the I don't know what to call it, the charisma or the persona. Trump is a great man of history, and I don't mean great necessarily good, but just someone you don't see often. And Trump is one of those guys. You can hate him. Just because you're a great man doesn't mean you're a good man. But people in history like Julius Caesar, Alexander the Great, Napoleon, I would say Hitler, you go throughout, they're larger than life. They have a persona about them. They almost have a glow about them that just radically changes everything. They're not just some regular president like Bush or something. There's something larger than life about it. And I would say Trump is in that category. He has that about him. And he has tons of flaws. A lot of these people, they have tons of flaws. And I wish Trump, had a little bit more dignity at times, and he gets triggered about stupid stuff. But whatever, I put that up with him. But yeah, so I'm happy with Trump. I am with what he's doing. And some things, I get frustrated with, like Ukraine and so forth. But overall, I think he's been really good. And I think he was needed, put it that way. But I think, obviously, he's getting old, and he's coming to the end of his term. And we need someone to come in after him. And I do like J.D. Vance a lot. And yeah, I know he's married to an Indian woman. And you could say he used to be a neocon. And some people were complaining that he wore makeup. If you're in front of the camera, they put makeup in front of everyone. I don't understand that, right? And I'm not a big purist, like I was trying to say earlier, that we can't just look for some perfect person. But I think J.D. Vance is very intelligent. I think he has a passion for our people. I think he's changed a lot, and I think we should help him. So I do like JD Vance in 2028. I think he would be a really good candidate, and I think that would be good. There's a lot of people I don't like him. I get it. It's like the same people that don't like Tucker Carlson because Tucker Carlson, he applied to be part of the CIA, but he didn't get in. Oh, he's just deep state. He's all fake. I don't think so. I think Tucker, he takes a lot of risks, really. $20. Hey, thank you. I believe free porn is the reason behind the population reduction. It is part of the insidious plan. It definitely. I know Israel, when they took over some Palestinian areas, the first thing they did was pipe in porn. So, yeah, it is a way to demoralize. It's a very destructive thing. I should do a whole show on porn sometime. But, yeah, it is a bad thing. And there's been numerous factors that have led to the demographic crisis. But porn is a destructive element. It really is. And I'm not trying to throw stones at people. I had it myself, right? It's interesting. Once you get off porn now, I don't even like when I'm anymore now on like Twitter, and I just see these skanks show their naked asses, and I'm like, God, I don't want to see that. I don't know. I'm attracted to women, but not like that anymore. And it just seems vulgar and gross. I guess it's just been so overdone. It's just like, ugh. So, yeah, but porn is definitely destructive. And on the same token, social media and the narcissism of women has been very destructive. And so the dating apps have been destructive. Social media in general is something I don't know if humankind can really keep up with. It creates a lot of issues there. So, yeah, that is definitely. So, anyway, that was, I guess I got an hour and 10 minutes here. I wanted to do a show like this, and because I don't want my Friday shows. My Friday shows used to be the weekly wrap up, but it doesn't really make sense because every day now, without exception, I do my 5 top news stories of a day. And I hope you guys like them. Be sure to like and subscribe. I do them on YouTube. I'm trying to grow my YouTube channel. And I think a good format. I got a lot of good feedback. People like watching them. They're usually about 20 minutes, 25 minutes. So they're not super long. You get the top stories of the day. And I appreciate that. And I'm still, Wednesday nights, I still haven't decided what I'm going to do because Z-Man, I don't know how, you can't replace Z-Man. I'm still bummed about that. I feel bad about that. But I plan to do stuff with Sasha, and I will probably do a show on Sunday. So thank you guys for all your support. I really do appreciate it. And thank you, KMax, for your generous donations. And also thank you, let's see who. I want to thank you, Troy. Troy, thank you very much for that. I really do appreciate it. So guys, thank you so much for being here. And look for my video tomorrow. Have another video tomorrow. And I look for a live streaming. Maybe on Sunday, Session and I will do a live stream. But definitely next Friday I will. And I'm just not going to do news recaps. I'm going to deep dive into topics, so it's a little bit more interesting. So thanks, guys. Talk to you later.